Spanish painter Peter Paul Rubens is considered one of the greatest artists of all time, so perhaps it's unsurprising that an old master makes it onto my list. Actually, it's rare for such a good quality painting to come to auction. Nearly all the finest old masters are now in museums, and they're highly unlikely to ever reach the market again. It's hard not to feel a little bit upset when you encounter this picture, because there's just no shying away from the subject matter. It tells the story of King Herod's massacre. There is a Bethlehem, and it's terrifying. You see muscly soldiers ripping babies from their mothers' arms and dashing them to the floor. The women themselves are weeping, wailing, and scratching, clawing at the faces of their assailants. And these lifeless corpses of the infants, here down at the bottom of the painting, tossed aside like unwanted, forgotten dolls, and they have this distressing shade to their skin, this stone-cold blue. It's just too painful almost to look at, and full of anguish and grief and despair and high-wrought, full-blooded emotion. To be able to do that, to transform something so horrendous and so complex into a coherent piece of beauty was just astounding. And I wondered before coming here whether it's worth paying $76.5 million for any picture at all. But you come here and you see this painting, and it is a total knockout. The massacre of the innocents is even more astonishing when you consider that until recently, it wasn't even thought to have been Rubens at all. When it was finally identified or attributed to Rubens, paintings really increased exponentially overnight, adding several noughts to its price. Here at the National Gallery, art historian David Jaffe helped reveal who really painted the Massacre of the Innocents by comparing it with another Rubens masterpiece, Samson and Delilah. Do you remember when you first saw it?
Yeah, I saw it at Sotheby's up in their upper so-called private room. It was pretty extraordinary. It was one of those ones where I said, well, we don't have to have a large discussion on this. It's purely right.
Tell me about the comparisons between Samson and Delilah and the Massacre of the Innocents.
We actually took them upstairs here. Where
I'm Katie Girl. Hello.
And you can look at them very carefully.
Hello, it looks like I came early. Yeah, I just started a few minutes ago.
Numerosity in a certain way and dot and line in a certain way. Painters handle the brush. Particularly when they're bored. Rubens often does a little zigzag. When you see it on the ankle of his painting, you're looking for his handwriting in paint. And if the handwriting works, it's by that artist.
But once the Massacre of the Innocents was attributed to Rubens, what does that do to the value of the painting?
Well, I think everyone wants to buy, the real thing. There are very few great Rubenses of any period in his career now you can buy. So when a great one comes up, it gets an exponential thrust, I guess. Until it's on that moment of being actually for sale, it doesn't have any value. I mean, it's an absolutely arbitrary thing. You can't predict how idiotic 3 or 4 people will be to try and chase the magic rabbit around the circuit when it comes up.
Only billionaires can chase that rabbit. Ken Thompson was Canada's richest man. He built a global media empire that once encompassed the Times and the Sunday Times. He pumped millions into the art gallery of Ontario in his hometown of Toronto to share the glory of art and its creation, as he put it, with the world. The Thompsons are intensely private and seldom give interviews. Ken's son, David, who bid for the Massacre of the Innocents with his father, has agreed to speak to him.
My father began collecting in the 50s. He'd mutter, and sometimes he'd hit me in the arm and say, oh, look at this. Can you imagine being able to carve this way? I mean, look at David. Oh, look at this one. I mean, this is how he responded. And with each object, it would be a different facet to the object. It would be the patination, it would be the color.
one of the defining moments in the history of the collection, of course.
The color pencils can be erased because I've seen some color pencils be erased. Yes, it can. It can. It's not as easy as to erase as graphite or charcoal, but it can be erased.
Until the
Especially with the
came down with the catalog.
this
And he asked,
electric eraser.
what do you think is so much? What would you do if you were me? And I said, I think, frankly, you need to buy this picture. It's something that resonates like nothing else.
You must have had to fend off some supremely stiff competition. You must have known there was going to be a fight, didn't you? What was your strategy?
To triumph. To outlast them.
You knew you were going to win.
We knew we were going to win. At least I hope we were.
The final price was £49,500,000, or $76.5 million.
After it was over, there was silence. He took his glasses off, and he took a few deep breaths. And I think he said something to the effect, oh my goodness. It's all of a sudden money and painting to think to yourself, it's shopping centers, it's
Hello, Ralph.
everything.
Hello.
But it was a marker for my father and for his collections.
Rudy Mendoza, what paper are you using? I'm using Strathmore Bristol 300 series vellum surface.
Collection at the Art Gallery of Ontario, on display for everyone to see forever. How do you feel when you go to the art gallery now? Look at this painting. Imagine if it were me, I want to, every time I saw it, just kind of punch the air that I got this thing with my dad. I'm giving it now to the world. How do you feel?
I just feel a wellspring of emotion because it symbolized a journey for my father. It symbolized a journey between father and son. And it resonated for us as it resonates for so many others. It's a very remarkable touchstone.
So what have I learned from painting number 9? Well, that overnight, the same painting can be viewed in a completely different way. One day, the Massacre of the Innocents was overlooked. The next, it was suddenly the most expensive old master ever signed. The canvas was exactly the same, but the way it was perceived was magically transformed by its attribution to a superstar artist. To get more of an insight into the mentality of the art career, I've come to a luxury penthouse apartment overlooking the Thames, owned by one of the world's best-selling novelists.
This is Sisley. Is that a pastel?
It's a pastel, which is very rare. It's over. And it's one of those rare paintings where I wanted it within seconds of seeing. Sometimes the day they go back the second time, that's when I knew immediately what you're ready now. I do apologise.
Jeffrey Archer is currently 583rd in Britain's richest. He's had a colourful career. A politician and confidant of Margaret Thatcher, he was made a lord by John Major, and he's also served a prison sentence for perjury. But it's his novels that have allowed him to pursue his passion for collecting art, not old masters, but 19th century impressionists.
And there you will see one of my philosophies on collecting. Because I can't afford any of the impressionists, I buy the next rank down, and they're often just as good, if not as well known. This is a Campbell. Well, now
This is not Matisse.
or Gauguin. That was a Gauguin, and this was a Van Gogh. You're talking not 10 times the price. You're talking 100 times the price. I suppose. Let's get rid of it here.
Oh, thanks.
I suppose the big thing about the main room is
The view.
exactly.
Which you prefer, your paintings or the
Oh,
view?
no, it's amazing because when people come here, they immediately say the view.
It is hard not just to stand here like this.
Yes, which is frankly what some people do when they walk in to see the view, they forget the pictures completely.
I can't help that thing that you talked about having second-rank artists in the corridor in terms of impressionists, but here is Andy Warhol.
Well, is he very great? I don't think so. I think he's very expensive now, but I don't think he's a great artist. No, I don't.
this. It's not dissimilar, the hairstyle between Marilyn and Margaret Thatcher for me.
Yes, they were both powerful women.
So, how much do you think this would be worth?
No idea. Where did you go?
You called me the Bulgarian. Vulgar question. Does the money for buying art come from... This is the Golden Book. This is the equivalent of going platinum, Cain and Abel.
Yes, that's the breakthrough, because that's what you're getting at in your continued vulgar narrative way. Yes, it was Cain and Abel that made it possible for me to have the collection. My favourite picture in a way is this one, The Art of Building. Often compared as an artist to Turner, and what you see there, of course, is he must have painted it just over there. And it's the amazing boldness and the amazing colours at night when the sun is coming over it. It looks magnificent.
When did you buy it?
Oh, 30 years ago.
So you've been collecting for several decades?
I've been collecting for 50 years. Let's face it, if you get into this kind of world, it's like drugs. You have to have another one, you have to have another fix. I mean, it's just awful. And you, wherever you see something you can just about afford, you just about afford it. You're come straight to it, as well as stupid and mad.
And collectors really go for the artist of number 7 in our top 10. I'll explain when we jump to 7 in a moment. No one quite captures the imagination like Claude Monet, the prince of the Impressionists. He spent the second half of his life depicting his gardens at Giverny, especially those methods which he painted most. Most of them are in museums, so when a good one comes on the market, it creates a frenzy. At number 7 in my top 10, it's Monet's Water Lily Pond, going for $80,379,591. Knowing the time it passed, we bid for the painting and won. Well, Tanya, tell me about the night you paid $80 million for this painting.
Well, here to start, I knew that this painting was going to outshine its estimate, and there was a lot of competition in the room. I knew that it was very important because of his water lily series consecutively for 26 years.
Well, that's the question I wanted to ask, because there's so many of these paintings. What's special about this one? Why is this worth so much?
First of all, of his late water lilies, few are signed, and this is the completed late version, signed by the artist.
We should make clear that you weren't buying this for yourself, you're buying this for somebody else. Who are you buying it for?
I will never say. Confidentiality is part of my job.
What is it that motivates some of these collectors to spend this amount on works of art?
Well, I think the people I work with are surrounded by quality in their lives, so why would it stop in art collecting? They wish to have the very best, and they want to be surrounded by the very best, whether it's their home, their car, their planes. I mean, it's just the way they live their lives.
Take a good look at the painting. It's appeared only once in public in the last 80 years, and since the auction, it hasn't been seen again. And this brings me to the story of the shocking disappearance of the next 2 paintings in our top 10. The most popular postcard sold by the National Gallery is this one. It's a reproduction of a still life of a vase of sunflowers painted by Vincent van Gogh in 1888. You can see that, in reality, it's much more luminous and radiant. This is one of the most famous paintings in the world. If it ever came into the market, it would sell for an insane amount of money. But it won't. But when the highest achievements by some of our greatest artists do appear at auction, then the art market can be influenced by much more than simply love for a painting. That's exactly what happened in the heady days just before the stock market crash of 1990, when 2 paintings sold within days of each other: Vincent van Gogh's portrait of Dr. Gachet at Christie's, and Au Moulin de la Galette by Pierre-Auguste Renoir at Sotheby's. Number 8 and number 6 in my top 10, purchased in a mad 2-day spending spree by the same collector. In the late 80s, buying art had become a masculine pursuit. Buying the best was like big game hunting, only to be attempted by the bravest with the deepest pockets. It was a rampaging bull market, and prices were being forced up by the new kids on the art block. The Japanese.
$71 million.
The man with the biggest wallet in the room was a paper tycoon, Ryohei Saito. Intensely eccentric and secretive, no one knew whether he bought both paintings for love or solely as an investment, because he spirited them away, out of sight even from his own family. The man who sold the portrait of Dr. Gachet is legendary auctioneer Christopher Birch.
17 million.
He sold more of the paintings in this film than anyone else.
500,000.
I want to discover more about the role and power of auctioneers and how they steer prices skywards through the excitement of the auction.
And selling. This is the goods room, which is the second floor, so the small two, where we conduct most of our auctions. So 90% of all our auctions take place in here. And this, of course, is the room in which we are about to go through an auction lesson.
This is where we're going to learn the trade.
This is where you're going to learn trade. A large staff will be assembling fairly soon to act as bidders, telephone bidders, sales clerks, and the rest of it, just as if it were.
I thought it was just going to be a read.
No.
Let's begin with lot 327, a sculpture. I wrote down, do I have any bids at €24,000? Do I have 28? Thank you, madam. $28,000. $30,000.
I tend for months before it makes sense to anxiety.
Anish Kumar Somavali.
Still getting that.
So, more so actually, the more I do it, the more months I get.
Do I have $150,000 in the room? Someone? Anyone in the room? Anyone at all? Not getting much love from the room.
Our dealers, collectors, hangers-on, most of them, frankly, we love it. It's quite gladiatorial the whole thing. You get the feeling that the thumbs are sort of like this, and will very quickly go like that if people try to make a hideous mistake.
Would you like to pay $55,000? We don't see you sign $55,000. I know you'll have it. Can sometimes get an extra bid, $55,000. Once you get into the swing of the auction, it's easy to lose sight of the numbers and the reality of the sums at stake. So, this madam, this lady over here, $58,000. But as Birch concedes, occasionally prices in the auction are not just about the paintings. Doesn't it happen in auctions that sometimes prices go so high that people afterwards applaud?
Only once was there ever sustained performance for that I sold. That was for the Van Gogh portrait of International. When it was sold, and I hammered it down $82 million, which was the price for anyone who could ask. There was some sustained applause, people leapt to their feet, they cheered and yelled. The support went on for several months, which is beginning. The reason everybody put it, I believe, is because we have a very serious financial situation developing in the activities. All sorts of things were collapsing. And the Japanese ones, who were the mainstay of the market, were beginning to get nervous and were pulling out. And everybody was convinced that the market was going to tumble. And that lot, for a moment, stayed the collapse, as it were. And I think that everybody was applauding. They were applauding the relief that they had saved them. You know, my feeling was honest. Very great this kind of stuff, extremely. And I almost felt like just looking off while the support was going on and just going off stage and not returning. They weren't applauding for Van Gogh, they weren't applauding for the work of art, they were applauding for money.
Whatever Saito's motives were for buying the Van Gogh and the Renoir, he faced financial ruin soon afterwards. Extraordinarily, he threatened to burn the paintings rather than sell them. In 1996, he died. Paintings haven't been seen since. Some genuinely believe he carried out this plot to reduce them to ashes. Others think they were secretly sold to pay his debts. Either way, they passed into our world mythology. Just imagine the prices they'd achieve if they ever appeared again. Number 5 in our top 10 is by a painter known for his brutal, difficult work. It brings me to London's Chelsea, where millionaires live behind metal gates and brick walls. So many millionaires, in fact, that it's easy to get the wrong house.
Yeah, there they are. Francis Bacon, that's right. These are not genuine, sadly. Mr. Abramovich owned them.
Well, would you believe it? We've got the wrong house.
I'm going to take... Can you show me? Yeah. This one. So I should be putting these copies along here. Yeah. A triptych. It's a series. 3 paintings, that's 2. Have a go. This one is by a famous British artist called Francis Bacon, sold at auction in 2008 for $86,281,000, which puts it at number 5 in our list of the most expensive paintings in the world. And there's a reason why I'm propping them up against the wall near Chelsea in the middle of London. Behind me is a house that belongs to the Russian billionaire and owner of Chelsea FC, Roman Abramovich. And the rumours are he bought the real triptych back in 2008. I have a very strong hunch that the real triptych is actually hanging in that house behind me.
At number 5, Francis Bacon's triptych, which sold at Sotheby's in New York in 2008. Bacon's paintings are rising fast. Another work went for 3 times its estimate earlier this year, but they're not easy to look at. Bacon was a hard drinker and heavy gambler who painted a series of grisly triptychs, and this glorious at best. Just look at those horrific winged creatures pecking at a mangled carcass. You have to be made of stone skill to enjoy staring at this masterpiece. Maybe Roman Abramovich bought the triptych to impress his girlfriend, Dasha Zakova, who recently opened an art gallery in Moscow. His purchases have not gone unnoticed. He also paid a record-breaking price for another artist, Lucien Freud, who's now officially Britain's most expensive living artist, thanks to Abramovich. Roman Abramovich is notoriously shy and declined my request to have a look at his mantelpiece and stare at his bacon. I have tracked down the daughter of another oligarch, Maria Ibakova, herself a collector, to find out why Abramovich and the oligarchs are descending on the art market.
During communism, we actually couldn't go out and buy a painting. We couldn't aggregate funds. We didn't have bank accounts. So all of a sudden in the 90s, we have capitalism coming in. We are able to own private property.
Jug
And
Kirat
after-
Kirat SS. When I drew this one, it was so hard for me to make that full clothes texture. Yeah, I agree, it's hard. It's also hard for me.
Is he exceptional in terms of what he buys, or
We are only aware publicly of 2 works of art that Roman Abramovich has purchased,
which are
which are the Lucien Freud and Francis Bacon triptych. But at the same time, he's a very substantial collector, and it's not necessarily true that everything that is buying is on that price tag.
those were exceptional prices like that?
Those were exceptional prices.
I guess the big question is, did he overpay? Because it's such a large sum.
I think the question is, why does it matter?
I'd like to get a sense from you of why some of his new group of very well professionals are buying art. Is it because they love it? Is it because they like to show off? Is it because...
Jug Kirat SS, yeah, dude, that the final drawing
Really
was
think
awesome.
about it.
Ooh.
Most Russian art collectors are actually very private.
Congratulations.
You actually don't really know who they are. You don't really know what they believe. So,
Do you know who they are?
well, a lot of them are my friends. So, yes, but they're extremely private. So therefore, the whole idea of buying art as a status symbol falls apart right there, because presumably if you're buying art for status, you would want people to know that you love this or that.
Okay, oligarchs may not do it for global recognition, but it could be for approval among their peers. Maria Ibakova would seem to be proof of that. So far, the collectors of my top 10 paintings have bought art for love, for prestige, for investment, and as the ultimate luxury item. But the painting at number 4 has meaning for its buyer that goes beyond its monetary or even artistic value. Adele Bloch-Bauer II, painted by the Viennese artist Gustav Klimt in 1912, came onto the market in spectacular fashion in 2006. The Bloch-Bauers were wealthy Austrian Jews who, along with so many others, had their possessions stolen by the Nazis.
Portrait of Adele Bloch-Bauer 2, $25 million starts with a $25 million, $28 million.
After years of legal wrangling, the painting was restored to its rightful owner, a descendant of the family living in California, who then decided to sell it. This is known as restitution art. With the buyer's premium, this made Adele Bloch-Bauer II the 4th most expensive painting in the world. Ronald S. Lauder was himself Jewish and inherited the Estee Lauder cosmetics empire, is rumoured to have bought the painting, but he's being coy about its whereabouts. However, he has allowed me into his gallery in New York's exclusive Fifth Avenue to see another of his paintings, which is on public view, and I've heard that this one cost him even more money.
Here, the Noy Gallery in New York, there's another similar work. It's by the same artist, Klimt. He painted it 5 years earlier, and it's a portrait of the same model, a woman called Adele Bloch-Bauer, who was the wife of a very wealthy sugar merchant in Vienna. The painting today is one of the most famous pictures in the world. It's here.
the most difficult to draw
Very different.
because if I was mute a while ago, I'm gonna repeat my answer. Nose is the most difficult, and hands
You spend that.
and hair.
Very sad, but can read it. Very sad, yes, very sad.
Why do you think it's sad?
Because very offensive. It's by that people will like art really by that sometimes like a statue, like a social appearance.
To show off?
Probably sometimes it's a pity that people can read it.
The risk of Francois Pinault frittering away his millions on art that might simply be forgotten is great, but the potential reward of being remembered as an eagle-eyed patron of
Archie, hello Archie.
tomorrow.
For me, it's
Of course,
parang dati ako lang kausap mo quiz. Parang depende sa drawing yata.
but if you want a short
For me, it's
fire,
hairs, lips, just cannot get the lips
Hang out with your
perfect.
friends, hang splendidly on your wall, either in your luxury penthouse or on your private yacht. But you need to get yourself or your advisor down to an auction and buy a Picasso. This one went for a paltry $19 million plus the buyer's premium, but the third most expensive painting in the world sold for nearly 5 times that. At number 3, Dora Maar Ocean. Sold at Sotheby's in 2006 to a mystery man in the audience who no one had ever seen before, who apparently spoke with a Russian accent. I wondered whether he was a friend of Maria Bajdakova's as well.
I was in the room when the painting was sold. Right after the auction ended, there was a lot of speculation about who is the buyer behind the scenes. And I think it took maybe about a year to really figure that out.
So who is the buyer behind the scenes?
So it's a Georgian collector who refers to Ancient Crete.
But everyone in the art world knows who he is.
I don't know about everyone, but some people in the art world knows who he is.
So why don't you just tell us? If everyone knows,
I'm not at liberty to.
why? What will happen? He'll kill you.
No, of course not. I just honor and respect.
Archie, konti na lang mag-100k na.
Discretion.
Oo nga, sana bago matapos ang 2024, magka-silver play button na kayo pa.
Named in the Russian edition of Forbes magazine as the likely
Living the dream. Nice work, BMD. It's coming together. Thank you, thank you.
and lives in Moscow. Presumably
Yeah, I hope so.
But this is more than I know about the owner of the next painting on my list. It's another Picasso, and it was sold in 2004, but no one can tell me where it is or who the buyer might even be. Once again, when art becomes a luxury commodity in the hands of the rich, sometimes it disappears from sight.
Now, this is a reproduction of the real thing. And Picasso painted Boy with a Pipe when he was 24, and he'd recently moved to Paris and had next to nothing. When Picasso put the finishing touches to Boy with a Pipe, he could never in a million years have conceived that one day his painting would be worth so much. In 2004, Boy with a Pipe was offered at auction and sold for $104 million, placing this at number 2 in our list.
So Picasso's at number 3 and at number 2 in my top 10. In
Archie, sabayan kita kumuhit habang nanonood. Sige.
And that's because Picasso is much more than a painter. He's the ultimate luxury brand. And nowhere is this more evident than in Las Vegas. Sin City is the last place you'd come looking for fine art, you might think. But actually, a lot of the people who build Vegas thought works of art by Pablo Picasso. And if you think about it, it's a match made in heaven because Vegas is the most extravagant monument and unimaginable. Picasso, well, he's famous for being the most expensive artist in the world. In fact, the billionaire property developer who built this place the luxury Bellagio Hotel and Casino also amassed an equally extraordinary collection of Picassos. His name is Steve Wynn. Walk through the heart of the casino, and in among the slot machines and gaming tables you'll find an art gallery and a Picasso fine dining experience. Most of the Bellagio's Picassos are here in the restaurant, which Steve Wynn designed, along with Picasso's own son, Claude, who did the carpets. Picassos everywhere. There's a huge one over there. There's one here from 1917. This is from
Living the dream, me too. I'm drawing this commission with you again. Oh,
Even the plates, which are closely modelled on his own designs. It's It is a little bit ironic that these two still lifes of flowers and fruit hang behind me here at all, because Picasso painted them during the war when he was living in Nazi-occupied Paris, and food was impossibly scarce, and now they're backdrops for lavish banquets. But I don't think the Bellagio really cares whether or not you study the Picassos in here. You're just supposed to bathe in the aura of exclusivity that they project. I guess it makes a kind of sense for one of the smartest restaurants in a city obsessed with money to have paintings worth tens of millions of dollars on the walls, but it's hard not to wonder what has become of art when it's nothing more than decoration for the wealthy, like overblown wallpaper.
I'm Steve Wynn, and this is my new hotel, the only one I've ever signed my name to.
Steve Wynn did hold on to one, his favourite, Picasso's Le Rêve, which not only inspired the new hotel, but really became the most expensive painting in the world. Wynn suffers from a degenerative eye condition and he's slowly losing his sight. In 2006, he agreed to sell Le Rêve, which means the dream, for $139 million. But before the deal was done, he put his elbow through the canvas and suddenly...
We stood in shock. I can't believe I said, thank God it was me and not someone else.
It's easy to find his hotel, but the man, the painting, far harder to track down. Now, I was hoping that Mr. Wynn would invite me to his house, and I could see the dream hanging on his wall, but his people refused the interview, so instead, I've come here, just outside Vegas, and I brought on this colour reproduction of the dream. And you can see that it's an erotic fantasy, really. It's a picture of Picasso's mistress, Marie-Thérèse Walter, and her head is nodding off to one side as she's dropping into the unconscious and starting to dream. You can see her full face, and also a profile. And if you see just the profile of her face there, well, there's this other quite suggestive shape, which I think is Picasso's way of saying that she has sex on the brain. The Dream is one of Picasso's finest paintings, but Steve Wynn may have bought it in part because of its previous owner, Quebec Provenance. Except this time, it's not a billionaire character, but a middle-class New York family who amassed an extraordinary collection of Picassos.
What is considered the most important 20th century art collection ever offered at auction shattered a record at Christie's in New York City last night. The collection of Victor and Sally Gans raked in more than $206 million, and that sets a record for a single-owner auction. 57 items sold. The collector's children put the masterpieces up for sale after Sally Gans died earlier this year.
This is a book that Christie's produced just before the sale. And what they were trying to convey was something about my parents and the way they collected art. So the way this book works is it goes through all the artists they collected one by one. And so if you look at Picasso, you just see, you know.
Well, there's the Dream.
There's the Dream.
But all of these pictures were
they own, yes. Here's this.
This one is this one.
Yes, this one is this one. This is one of the...
This is Winter Landscape, 1950.
They were parents when they were getting married. They were married in 1941, and in
Ralph, we've been drawing while watching you po. Oy, madami na tayong nagda-drawing ng
That was a very, very,
sabay-sabay.
very bold, brave, and big purchase for them.
Do you know how much it cost them?
It cost $7,000.
And to put that in context, was that...
To put it in context, the rent on the apartment that they had was $300 a month. So it cost more than 2 years' rent.
Right, that's an
Yes.
investment. It sounds like the way you're talking that the dream was one of the early purchases then.
It was the first one.
That was the first work of art they bought, was The Dream by Picasso.
He saw the painting.
You fell in
He
love?
felt totally in love with it. The way he fell in love with the person. Couldn't get it out of his mind. And figured they had to scrape together the money and give up other things in order to buy it.
What did your mum and dad do? How did they afford to be able to buy the art that they bought?
My father was in the costume drawing business, which he had inherited, and my mother didn't work as women didn't work in those days. And they didn't have very much money. They didn't really have savings. They had a rent-controlled apartment. And my father fell in love with Picasso.
It sounds like they weren't buying for investment at all.
No, no.
How would you describe the motivations that drove them to buy these paintings?
Love.
How did they feel when it came to the sales?
Very sad. First of all, right after my mother died, she died second. We were inundated with people you can imagine. I mean, teams of people from Sotheby's and Christie's, and literally people from England and from Japan, and people from all over, sort of descending on the house. So that was a fairly uncomfortable situation.
The shameless.
Well, that's what they do. That's their job.
Is this happening all the time? Is this
No,
sort of
of
like...
course. Believe me, they have, now it's all computerized, but they have on their computer, you know, the 50 most important collectors in the world, and where their works of art are, and where they live, and how old they are, and when they're about to die, and who's waiting to inherit what, and they know.
It's a death watch.
As my mother used to say, the vultures are saying, oh, the sale is such a morbid place. It's about death.
I mean, was it a necessity in the sense that there were a number of things like presumably taxes, death duties, and so on?
There was a number of one big fat thing called tax. In America at that time, taxes were about 55%.
So that means if you'd retained a painting like The Dream, you would have had to pay 55 or 60% to the taxman of its value. That's perceived by the auction house at the time, is that right? How did you feel when you subsequently learned that The Dream ended up in the possession of Steve Wynn, who, by all accounts, is a very different man to the man that your father was?
Steve Wynn, I've known him as a very nice man. I'm sorry that he put his elbows in the paint. That was unfortunate. But I do remember it was in an exhibition in New York years ago. And the director of the gallery said, the repair is so skillful that no one has been able to see where it is. And I went to the gallery and I went into the room and it was way down the other way. As I started to walk down the room, I was alone. Nobody else was in there. I could see immediately where it was.
Where was it, out of interest? Because I've heard various things.
It's, well, you can't see it. Here's a picture of my son standing in front of it, but it's down sort of behind, right around there.
The left forearm. Left forearm.
Yeah, it's right about there, actually. I don't know how big the hole is, but the scar that you can see.
I mean, in a sense, here's a painting that had survived intact and been looked after and loved in your family for many decades. And it's in someone else's possession and it's suddenly damaged.
You know, it fundamentally doesn't change the picture.
Change the value of the picture.
I mean, I think the picture is more important than the money, so.
When you hear songs like that attached to it, can you justify that? I mean, how do you feel?
I think it's very sad. You know, you think, what else you could do with that money in this world? I think it's ridiculous. We're saying, well, how much money is it worth when it's not about the art anymore?
Certainly the prices paid for our top 10 paintings are not just about the art. They reflect provenance and attribution, buying for investment, and buying to make a grand statement. Only very occasionally they're all about love.
68 million, 59 million, 59, 60 million, 61 million, 60.
In May 2010, another Picasso came onto the market.
69 million, 72 million, 73 million.
In this painting, became the most expensive work of art ever sold at auction.
88 million now.
I was thrilled to be involved with these. Hadn't been seen for 50 years. So most Picasso scholars today have not seen the picture and they look at that. So it was in that respect thrilling.
$95 million.
It's an incredibly complex and beautiful work of art.
And selling at $95 million.
At number 1 in our top 10, it's Nude Green Leaves and Bust, with the buyer's premium taking it way past the $100 million mark to $106,482,500. So who can afford to pay such a colossal amount of money for a painting?
I have heard a rumour that the most expensive painting ever sold at auction, Nude Green Leaves and Bust by Picasso, was bought by a Russian. Is that something that you know about?
As far as I understand, it was bought by a Georgian. I can't say anything else.
Whoever has bought it has also done something rare. They've agreed to lend it to Tate Modern in London for 2 years. The price it achieved gives it an aura. Maybe when people look at it now, all they see are pound signs. But actually, it really is quite a phenomenal work. It might not be the best painting in the world, but it's strong, self-confident, and sophisticated. It belongs to the same sequence of paintings as The Dream, the one that Steve Wynn poked his elbow through. And like that canvas, its subject is the artist's blonde, voluptuous mistress.
Picasso was 50 when he painted this. Marie Thérèse was only 22. And they'd met 5 years earlier when Picasso stopped Marie Thérèse, who was 17 at the time, in the streets outside a department store in Paris and said, "I am Picasso. I'd like to do a portrait of you, and I feel we're going to do great things together." And by Marie Thérèse's own admission, they were sleeping together within a week. And looking at this picture, you can tell that Picasso fell head over heels because, if anything, Nude Green Leaves and Bust is the most lavish picture about the rapturous dividends of a midlife crisis. This is about sexual fulfillment. It's about illicit sensual bliss. Marie Thérèse's flesh here, which is this radiant lilac, such a contrast to the predominantly dark blue background, is so pliant and soft and spherical, just like the fiery orange-red fruit in the bottom left-hand corner, as though she's something to be consumed like the puffy pink marshmallow. But there is one detail about this painting that I find ever so slightly sinister. If you look very carefully, in between the plaster bust and the plant, you can just make out a very dark, shadowy profile that's a self-portrait, as though